Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am super excited that you guys are here today. As always, if you guys can't tell, I definitely can, but there's a little bit of something missing on my face, and that is eyebrows. Obviously they're there, but they're not filled in at all. So if you can read the title and you can see my face, today's video is going to be a tutorial on how to fill in your eyebrows. I'm sure there's tons out there, but I love filling in my eyebrows, so I just wanted to bring my own video to you guys. I do prefer using the Dipbrow over like a eyebrow pencil. So I am actually gonna do one eye with the Anastasia Dipbrow in case you guys use that. And then on the other side, I'm actually gonna use a brow pencil. And it's actually the Wet n Wild retractable brow pencil. I think this is so comparable to the Anastasia Brow Definer. It has the definer type of style lid rather than the Brow Wiz. Yeah, and I picked this up on clearance at Target, and so I just kind of wanted to show you guys both ways to do it. And before we get started, if you guys would please subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I need to get over that 200-mile mark, and yeah, I would just be so grateful. And at the end, if you do enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. So let's get started. Alright, so I zoomed you guys in a bit so that you can see really well, because I definitely think that that's important for an eyebrow tutorial to get in there nice and close. So I think I'm going to start, just because it's my favorite, with the Dipbrow. If you haven't seen it by now, this is what it looks like, and I use the shade Taupe. I think I used to use medium brown, and my eyebrows just looked so overdone all the time for some reason. Back then I wasn't very good as either, because I've been using this probably for 2 or 3 years. But ever since I changed to Taupe, it's like my perfect shade. So I would just go in and test it in the store to definitely find which shade fits your eyebrows perfectly. And one thing I do want to mention is that I've had this one for a while. I do need to get a new one. So yesterday actually, or the day before, I put a couple just like facial oil drops into here. It looks a little bit runny right now, so it's going to be a little bit of a different consistency than I'm used to, but I've done this before and it still works just fine. But that is a tip for if your dip brow is drying out, which they usually last like probably a year. And so it's really definitely worth the money. Let me just talk about that real quick. Retractable eyebrow pencils literally never last me more than a month, and it is such an expensive habit to keep up with if you're buying name brand eyebrow pencils. When I first started filling in my eyebrow pencils, I don't even know what it's called now, and that's sad because I used it for so long, but I used a Tarte eyebrow pencil, and I would like consistently every like 3.5 weeks have to keep going and buying it and buying it. So if you do want to get perfected at Dipbrow, it will last you so much longer, save you a ton of money. But yeah, so if it starts to dry out, you can add a little oil droplets to it until you just get tired of it and decide to go buy a new one. So I will mention that pretty much like every YouTuber out there, I use Morphe brushes for the most part. I have a couple different Sephora sets, but this is the Morphe M158. I know I got a brush just like this in the iCredible set. I don't know if this one is that one or not, or I bought this one separately. I think I may have bought this one separately, but it's only a couple dollars at Morphe. I would definitely invest in it. Definitely invest in a brush that has the spoolie on the end, because that is the first step and the most important to me. Whether I fill in my brows every day or not, which I definitely don't, I always have to brush them out. That is really important to me. It just bothers me when the hairs are all going different directions. And I already brushed them out a little bit when I was doing my eyeshadow, but so I am still gonna go in to show you guys. The first thing I wanna do, and I might brush them down a little bit to fill in specific areas, but the first thing I do wanna do is just go in and brush them all out, going up towards the front of the eyebrows and just kind of, again, brushing upwards and outwards. I think I have a little bit of foundation still left in my eyebrows, or brow gel, not foundation. But yeah, I'm just going through and brushing them. You don't have to spend too long on doing it, but I just like to get them all going the same direction and in a nice flowing motion. And I just think eyebrows look so pretty when they're brushed out. So now I am going to be dipping into my Dipbrow, and I'm just going to dip into it very lightly. I like to put it right on this edge of the brush and a little bit on both sides, just so that the brush is nicely coated, and then I know no matter which way I turn it, there's going to be a little bit of product on it. But when I say a little bit of product, I definitely mean a little, especially when you put oil in it. A little goes a long way. So just try not to add too much. You can always add more, but when you mess up your brows and add too much, it's kind of like you gotta start from scratch. It's really hard to go back once you mess them up. And then I'm wiping off the edges on the edge of the pot just in case I have a little bit too much. And I always like to start right down here. I know this is a tip that you've probably heard many times before, but the front, you want it to look a lot softer than the ends of it. So I am gonna press lighter, but I do like to fill in this area right here because it's a little bit more empty. And I just like the eyebrows to look defined. I like it all to match, but I definitely do try to make the front of it softer than the back end of it. So I'm just gonna go in upwards motions, very light-handedly, just flicking upwards in like a line motion. And then once I kind of get it filled in a little bit, I actually do like to kind of like start going this direction and making it kind of like a line down here. Not like a straight line, but I like it to kind of all flow together at the bottom here. And just continuously while you're going through, just brush it out so that it doesn't get too harsh. I'm just gonna keep following that line down here all the way to the end of the eyebrow. Just kind of following in the motion, the general motion of your eyebrow. You want the ends of it to be pretty thin, so just be careful with that. And I'm just kind of going in and filling in all of the eyebrow because I want it all to match, look the same color. Don't want anything to look out of place or like one spot of it to look darker than the rest of it because I didn't put any product there. All right, and now just lightly so that I don't move everything around too much, I am gonna brush it down a little bit so that I can get in there and try to make some like defined looking brow hairs, a little bit more defined. I'm just gonna go in a downward motion with the brush, but very light-handed. Again, just brush it out. If you get it too harsh in one area, I would just suggest to brush it out until it softens up. So I'm just gonna kind of focus on the top here a little bit. Make sure everything. I kind of like the top right here to be pretty defined as well. I don't know why, but it's so satisfying when I hit this area right here because I have like less hair in this area right here for some reason. It doesn't really fill in as much. So when I'm able to add the eyebrow product, it just feels like the finishing touch. Now I'm gonna focus on the end of it. Again, you don't wanna make it too thick, but don't make it just like one line where it doesn't look normal. Just start out with making one line and then just gradually add a little tiny bit of it to the top and just let it all flow together. All right, so I think I like the way that one looks. So we are gonna go into the other eyebrow now. With this pencil, again, this is the Wet n Wild Retractable Brow Pencil. It was on clearance at Target, so I don't know how Target clearance works because I don't see it a lot, but I don't know if that means that the brow pencil went out of, that it's not sold anymore, but if it is sold, I will definitely put a link to it in the description box so that you guys can see that because it is really good. Like, usually cheap eyebrow products are like really waxy and they just don't show up well and they're just hard to work with. But this one is super pigmented, not waxy at all, and I just really like it. I do prefer like a Brow Wiz type of brow pencil over the brow definer. I just don't feel like I can get specific enough, and this is just kind of a little bit thick and kind of gets me straight away from things. But I have been trying to like switch it up a little bit because this takes me way more time to do than this. If I want to just fill in a few little holes while I'm about to go somewhere or something, I can use this and it will take me way less time, because if I'm going to use brow definer, I have to go in and fill in my whole eyebrow and make it all match. But with this, it matches my eyebrow perfectly, and so I just will fill in a few little holes of where it needs to be more defined, and it just works really well. So I really like this. And this one is in the shade dark brown. And this pencil does have a little spoolie on the end. It's not as big as the one that I showed you on that Morphe brush, but it definitely still works. We'll just go ahead and go brush them out again. So I am, again, like I said, going to start at the bottom here, and I don't press too hard. Your pencil will break, first of all, and obviously you don't want to make it look too harsh. I think that was definitely one of my problems when I started doing my eyebrows and I used a pencil. I think you can just get pretty carried away, either way, with Dipbrow or this. But this is a lot more light-handed, looks a lot more natural than the other side. So I'm just doing soft strokes going upwards in an upward motion, filling in any of the kind of like less hairy areas. And I really like the front of my eyebrow to kind of like stand up like this. I like the hairs to just kind of flow naturally in the front. So I really like to comb those up when I'm done. I like to comb these ones over a little bit, but the very front ones I like to stand up pretty straight. All right, and now I am gonna brush that down again so I can get that overall arched curve shape. And I'm just kind of going in with light strokes. So if you want more of a natural brow, I did fill it in a little bit more so it kind of matches this side. This side is definitely darker. Where I was getting at is if you want something a little more natural, I would get a pen because you can be a lot more soft-handed with it. Whereas to a Dipbrow, it just tends to go on heavier. They just tend to stand out a little more, I think. So it just really depends on what you want. If you really do want a sharp, defined, really just bam brow, then I would suggest the Dipbrow. But if you want something a little more natural, like I said, this is a little bit more bold because I filled it in more heavily. But on days where I'm in a hurry, I just fill in a few little spots because it matches my regular brow hair so perfectly that I can just go in and fill in a couple little spots and go, and they look good and natural. So it's just kind of whatever your preference is and whatever your hands feel more comfortable doing, because I've just had people tell me that like using the Dipbrow is too hard for them. It's just too hard getting used to doing it with a brush. So I would just practice with both of them. So the next thing I'm going to do now that I have the brows done is go in with a highlighter, and I'm going to use the Anastasia Dipbrown highlighter today. I'm sure you guys have seen this. But I love this pencil for doing my inner corner highlight and for doing an eyebrow highlight. It is the Jaclyn Hill JH40 brush from Morphe. I'm just going to get a little bit on the brush because I can obviously go in and add a little bit more, but start with a little bit, not too much. Tap off the excess, and I'm just going to go in and highlight right under the brow. This obviously has some shadow up here, so I'll probably leave that alone for the most part. If I do put some under here, it's a little bit lighter, but I always put it a little bit more heavy under this part of the brow. And really, you can use any highlight shade for this type of thing and it'll look stunning. I kind of just base it off of what shadow colors I'm using. If I'm using gold tones or silver tones. If I'm using silver tones, I'll use like a silver toned highlighter for my brows. And then last but not least is the Anastasia Clear Brow Gel. I'm sure you can use any brand. This is just my favorite. I probably will never stop using this brand because I just love it so much. This just helps your brows stay in place. When I like do weddings and stuff, oh, I'm sorry I'm itching my face. I just feel like cat hair is flying around everywhere. but I have a lot of bridesmaids ask me like what this is, and it seriously keeps your eyebrows in place just all day. When I'm going to work, I don't have time to usually fill in my eyebrows because I won't get up early enough, so I will just comb them out with this spoolie and just add the brow gel, and they will just stay in place all day. So this just keeps the product on them, and again, make sure they don't move. And you can give them just a final nice brush through to make sure all of the hairs are going the same direction. Alright you guys, so this is the finished look. I love how it turned out. I think the brows turned out great. They obviously look a little bit different since we used 2 different products, but I think the color is super similar. And it's funny how like one's called taupe and one's called dark brown. Taupe isn't really supposed to be a dark brown, so I think the oil made it a little bit darker that I added. But yeah, I love doing brows, and I think definitely practice makes perfect. Brows is one of the easiest things to perfect, I think. Another thing I want to mention, and I usually do my eyebrows before I do my eyeshadow, so if you do need to like clean up areas that got a little bit messy, or there was like you put too much product, you can definitely use a brush and use a little bit concealer and conceal over the spots that you messed up. That works really, really well. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to put concealer over the top of the eyeshadow I already had on tonight. But yeah, if you're wanting like super perfect, picture perfect brows, I would do your brows first and use a little bit concealer just to clean up any of the areas that you kind of messed up, or just to, even if you didn't mess up, just to give it a nice crisp underneath. I think that definitely helps. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye, you guys.